Season 2 had one of the most well-received launches in Fortnite history. Who am I kidding? You couldn't play for the first day, but when it did finally drop, it came with quite a kick. And well, it stayed that way. Not even 2 weeks after the season dropped, we got a huge update bringing back an LTM, Midas, and a new item, the Chains of Hades, which wasn't broken at all. Then after this, the next update gave us the Mythic Drum Gun, and it was terrible, so it doesn't count. Now, other than like 2 already existing guns being added, the only other updates we got for the season were collabs, which is my overall critique for the season. There were a clear lack of season-themed updates after the first month, and by lack I mean 0. None. Season 1 had the same problem, but it wasn't the most requested season theme of all time, so I'll cut it some slack. But this is a review. Time to turn that frown upside down because we are getting positive. Season 2's initial map changes still rival some of the best. It really managed to give a pretty bland map some very needed color variety. Not to mention the dashes provided by the Underworld biome were great mobility and perfect for when you 50-50 the Grim Gate chest and get all your loot snatched. Both of the biomes provide a great amount of materials, lots of wood, brick, spots with metal, and not whatever these rocks are giving you 30 a pop. Apart from the POIs, these biomes are practically perfect, and were very much needed given the current state of the map. Well, I already name dropped them, let's get to the locations. Brawler's Battleground. That's right, I remember the name, only because that's where the EU team won Grands and also Medallion, but mostly the first one. In my initial review, I rated this place pretty well, and it still holds up, fitting the war theme of Ares flawlessly. Gameplay, though, is actually not that bad, compared to the others anyway. If I were to sum up my overall thoughts on gameplay for the 4 locations, it'd be that they feel that they were made for zero build more than build. I'll go more in depth later. Fortunately, Brawler suffers the least from this, having the most enclosed buildings. The only issue is that these buildings are incredibly open on the inside, having just kind of an open room inside and no real complexity. Other than that, the boss is good and there's nice metal and is definitely the best location in terms of gameplay. Mount Olympus. Since we're giving out awards now, the most visually appealing definitely goes to Mount Olympus. Just look at that statue. In my first review, I said this location didn't have that many mats, but after landing here a few more times, I'd take that back. Probably the best metal from the statues and a plethora of wood from the trees. My other criticisms still hold up though. Fighting in this place feels too open, and with the awkward elevation, I've always found my fights end weird here. Especially with those roofs, coming back to my zero build point. Whose idea was this to put this on the building grid? Other than that, average location. Grim Gate. I'll give this place the most annoying to fight in and having the most broken item in the game. Ever since I got my creator code, I've been running customs and all we do is 50-50 the Grim Gate chest, giving me lots of time to discover how horrible the design of this place can be. From what I've noticed, there are 3 spots where fights usually go down. The first one being the 50-50 chest. Now if you don't get it because someone used a drop map, you drop down to fight spot number 2, where there's a god chest in the corner. Now if you're a coward and didn't land the 50-50 chest, you're most likely in fight spot number 3, where there's a ton of slurp barrels and another god chest. There's one thing these spots all share in common. There's no mats. God chests don't give you mats, but they do give you a purple gatekeeper, so, you know, fair trade. Apart from spot 3, everywhere else is very, very open. The only way efficient mats are obtainable is by going into the open. Well, there's your solution. Quickly go into the open, get mats, and build in the POI. Wrong! No, of course, it's not that easy. Tying back into my point about the locations being designed in favor of zero build, the cover in this place feels like it could work for zero build, but not for build. Man, these arches, they make up 90% of the place, yet you can't place a wall. I don't know, this place is just weird. It's too small for the amount of people there. At least with the Underworld, it makes up for it in size. Speaking of Underworld, I feel like I didn't give this place enough credit, given as I just mentioned, the size of this place gives it a lot more depth. Depth that I didn't acknowledge in my initial review. Sure, the surface is still very open, and there's no mats, but the underground portions are a lot more fun to fight in and work a lot better with the building grid. Giving this place the Siphon Medallion was clearly very intentional, seeing as the amount of layers this place has. Just the main building I think has around 4. Also, it looks as nice as it did on launch, so I'll give it some bonus points for that. And I forgot to give this place an award, so it can get the most depth and biggest. So the map. Biomes are phenomenal. POIs are kind of the same. Grimgate, I hate you more now. Underworld, I like you more now. Map's an 8 out of 10 for me. Looking at the whole season, this loot pool was just kind of The best way to describe it is the way Mudgy described modern day Fortnite loot pools in the video I'll link in the description. Quantity over quality. We did get a lot of new weapons this season, but they were all very dry. It felt like Epic was more trying to cram in as many guns as possible rather than giving us a choice. The best example of choice I can give is Chapter 4 Season 2. The two main shotguns were the pump and the charge. They both were pretty much equals but still worked in unique ways, fitting a player's playstyle rather than just being better than another. Still, everyone picked the pump because it was the pump, but it wasn't game over if you only ran the charge. The closest thing to choice or quality we have currently is the hammer pump and the gatekeeper. I still think one is objectively better than the other by a pretty far margin, but it doesn't mean that the hammer doesn't work. See, playstyle, quality. The rest of the loot pool is a fetch quest for the actual good gun, that being the burst. Everything else apart from the mythic AR is just kinda eh. I will say the heals this season are perfect. Flowberry Fizz is a great mix of a healing item mixed with a rotational item. Same goes for the banana. But the real highlight of the season is the Greek mythics, yet still, quantity over quality applies here. Though all the Greek mythics are different, they serve the same purpose, that's to deal damage. I mean, the wings were primarily a mobility item, but it still had a damaged focused attack. Also, if you used the wings, it was like a guaranteed death sentence. Which leads me to my point that if an item, weapon, whatever it be, sucks, no one really acknowledges it, or kinda counts it in the future. That doesn't mean I will, but again, this ties into quantity over quality. TAC AR. Point is that because the use of the wings were unusable past Silver 3, no one acknowledges the item for it. An example of what Fortnite could have done with some of the Greek mythics is the Avatar collab. Only 2 of them completely focused on damage, the other 2 being completely mobility and the other half damage, half defense, creating cover from anywhere. May I add that the mobility mythic provided good mobility, probably the most important aspect of that. Yes, I'm criticizing the wings here. To sum it up, give us uniqueness, give us quality and not quantity. Zeus and Chains, let's get to how broken they are, or were. Zeus mythic. This caused such a divide in the community after the nerf that it deserves a separate video. Hey, whoa, would you look at that? It's almost if I posted one. And it's almost if I wrote this script before Season 3 dropped. Moral of the story, casuals and competitive players wouldn't be so divided if Epic just kept the loot pool separate. Overall, we did have some new weapon additions, but they were either trash or didn't diversify the loot pool enough to gain recognition. Healing items, as I said before, were pretty great, nothing to complain about there. And the mythics, well, yeah, you know what I think they are. With the potential that was given versus the result, 5 out of 10 loot pool. It's not the first day of the season, so there's actually stuff to talk about. First update of the season, the Midas Floors Lava event, fantastic. By far the best update of the season, bringing back things we've requested for years. The next update, oh yeah, a single variation of a gun added last update. Okay, the next one, oh, it only took away this entire Duo's F and CS drop, cool. Oh, but we got the Deagle, so who cares? I think even though this season did have substantially more updates, they aren't really recognized as such. It's the same issue that Primal and Wild share in common. For both seasons, we actually did have some consistent updates. Wild got the addition of at least 3 new guns, 2 of which being completely unique in the span of 3 weeks. However, it was overshadowed by the lackluster summer update, making the community feel as if we didn't get as much as we did in terms of general updates anyway. I am not in defense of Wild, so that season was terrible. Primal 2, but that season also was just kinda bad. So were the updates. A season doesn't just automatically get bonus points for having an update. If the update's bad, that's a negative. I guess it's time to mention collab updates, which I have been purposefully trying to avoid this whole conversation. I'm tired of collabs being the focus update of the season, or more harshly, the carry of a season. Vibin, Wilds, Underground, and now. These aren't all the seasons with big collab updates, these are just the ones that in my opinion were relying on them. This season in particular though, I keep bringing up the fact that this is one of, if not the most, requested season theme of all time. And to rely on the Avatar update for content is crazy. But the biggest red flag here is that they removed the season-themed mythics in favor of the collab ones. If this doesn't prove that Fortnite wasn't focused on making a good original season, I don't know what does. And to be honest, this has kind of bled into my overall feelings about the season. The Avatar update, while being a decent update, felt like it took away from what could have been. Like imagine if we got a whole other set of Greek mythics instead of the Avatar update. And what about like any other season with a collab update? Chapter 4 Season 1? Mega? Yes, but the difference is those seasons had an abundance of original content with the addition of a collab. It didn't feel like the season was missing something without a collab. For example, Mega. Mega had a ton of collabs and some were even massive updates. Yet somehow, if these updates didn't happen, I would have been satisfied with the season. I don't feel the same way about Season 2. If you take away that update, it felt like something was missing. Now, as much as I'm making it sound, that isn't circumstantially a bad thing. But I think in this case, it was wasted potential. potential. I know I just crapped on some player's favorite update, but I'm looking at things from an outsider's perspective. I've never consumed a drop of Avatar media. Hell, I thought it was an anime. And you know what? My feelings might have been different if I was interested in Avatar. But I'm not, so I just say this update is another collab taking away potential for originality. Doesn't mean I didn't enjoy it. It was fine. Now don't even get me started on this. I've never said this on the channel, but I've always thought this. Star Wars peaked at Mega and will never get any better. And it didn't. I mean, the update was fine, LEGO got all the attention, and I didn't play it. But I'm trying to focus on BR here. I don't know what went down, but this update barely lasted a week, and honestly wasn't enough for me to play it. I mean, how many times can you really do Star Wars? Like, they're running out of content to pull from. Again, you can enjoy these updates. I'm not necessarily calling them bad. It just upsets me seasons rely on them for content and that they take away potential for originality. In the end, I think the season had a great first few weeks and then had a hard fall off. I don't really have an exact place for this season, but it's kind of a low mid tier. My hope for the future is that Epic does a Greek part 2 so the real potential of this theme can be used. And you know, they did a Marvel one, so who knows. Now I guess I have to rank the content. From the banger start to literally everything else not being season themed, the content was like a 5.5 out of 10. So my final review on Myths and Mortals, it's a 6 out of 10. Just kinda eh. That being said, I did really enjoy some parts of this season. Some parts. You just go Wambad in the item shop before they bring back Kratos. Guys, he's still coming, right?